Hello, my name is swissbianco. In this video I will talk a bit about Newt Livesay and his knives. This is a bit a thing of the past. As best as I see, Newt is still around as of September 2014, but there is so many now that make knives in USA that it is pretty tough competition, and also the availability of his or of some of his knives was always a bit a question. So unfortunately we could not resell too many of those. But for a while in the past, as I did start in USA, as I did come over for the blade show exhibition mainly, and then I stayed a bit during the summer in USA and rested a bit from being stuck in Switzerland. That was one of the makers that did appeal the most to me, so I did collect a bit of his work, and that's pretty much what we see here in front of the table today. And I'm gonna show a bit the different models. As I say, that was a pretty long time ago in the 90s, and back then there were not that many inexpensive knives that actually would have a pretty good quality, and Newt Livesay's work did always stand out with the quality of the blade itself. It's usually a carbon steel that he used. That one in the middle here is a titanium that he used for ultralight knives, and he also made some knives out of G10, as I believe, just as more as a stabbing knife instead of a cutting knife. So those knives that are here on the table are mainly 1095 steel, as best as I remember, and the Wu model, a Tanto blade model, was basically the one that he got famous for. As we see here, I would say a typical example of the Wu. We see here the stamp on it. It's basically a Tanto knife with a single grind. So on one side we have the grind, in this case on the left side. On the other side it is flat, and it features a simple paracord wrap as a handle. We see this one was made in 1999 for the Soldier of Fortune gathering, the 20th gathering. It's one of 500 that got made for this. I hope the camera will pick it up. It's pretty hard to see the stamp that he made for that. And that model here without the special stamp on the back side quite likely would show a typical example from him, with his kydex sheet and a piece of paracord to carry. And back then those knives were really affordable. They did sell for about $25-35. It depends where you did find them or buy them. So as I came to USA during those summers for quite some years, it was the quality that was impressive for it, and also the price. Instead of buying Chinese junk or US brands that let their knives make in China or Asia, even back then it was mainly more Taiwan and all that. That was better to spend the money on the knife from Newt Livesay. So I gathered a couple up of those, not only for collection of course, also for using. As we see here, that one got a bit harder used. I need to clean it up again and put it a bit grease on it for storage, but you see I already did use the knives. This one I rewrapped the handle there with a different paracord that I remember, and it's also a Woo model. Then we have here, actually here we have a bit a newer model with the Woo with the kydex. He did make his camouflage kydex back then himself. That is a version that is not wrapped at all. We see the Livesay stamp is a little bit different here. We have a second Livesay stamp on here, and this one is also, yeah, that is already from 1999 as well, a Soldier of Fortune model, but somehow maybe it was a leftover, who knows, with a newer sheet, and that came with it that way. So back then you could find a bit deals also on eBay, the rarer model of his work. Then we have here a Woo model that has the micarta scales. Those of course were more expensive. That has a bit a different handle. We see it's completely made out of micarta, and there is already a problem a bit with light discoloration of the parkerizing about the carbon steel. We see here he put the stamp on here, and we see a bit of the heat treating that was still left there. Those knives are pretty rough made, not in a bad way. They have character. I like that a lot. They have a character. They are perfectly well using knives, and for all the knives that I now have in my collection, I would not like to sell those knives at all, because they are still good value for the money and all. That is really well. Here we see a model, another one, a later one with the camouflage kydex that he make, just a random pattern, and this one was called the pecker or the little pecker knife. Basically the handle is like the Woo, but just a blade shape like this and not a tanto point. That is more for using, and it is double ground. On the other side it is grinded as well, so that means it had more value to it. It came with a higher price. The camouflage sheet anyhow too. Again, without the handle, many knives he did sell came either with a piece of paracord, or you simply use your paracord and wrap it. Back then the colors were basically limited on the black and the green and all that. It was way long time ago, pre-or it got that fancy that you get 2003 different paracord colors around now in USA, and mix of colors and camouflages and glow in the dark and God knows what else. That is back then it was a different time really. And then we have a different version here. It's a rapid deployment knife. He wanted to have a bigger handle. The kydex lock here also as an index for the finger, and just a small blade. That knife would be legal in many areas because the blade is so small. It's a simple thin piece of carbon steel that got double side ground to the edge in front, so for opening boxes and other work that would be enough. You could even wrap the handle a bit more, but it would make it more thicker. Many of his knives were designed as neck knives, so they were as thin as possible on the profile. So that's a good example about that. Then we have a version that he did in titanium with a tanto point. This time single side grind. He did it as it was usually at that point of time on the left side only, which is a bit bad for right hand cutting. It cuts, but it is not like a straight cutting edge. But that would give a typical example on his titanium work. As best as I remember, it's a 6AL4V titanium, the aircraft titanium, so it will hold a bit an edge. It doesn't have a carbide edge on it, but if you, how should I say, that was more a special purpose knife, that it is absolute light, that it won't rust in case you are on a ship or by the ocean and all that. It will not rust, and the anodizing is quite likely done by heat. How it looks, that he simple torched it a bit to give it a bit different look. Would have been nice if he would have blasted it like the other knives pre-or the parkorizing. If he would have blasted pre-or the torch flaming, the smoothness of the handle would have been a bit less slippery there. The kydex was always pretty nice made, just a basic shape of a kydex, but it won't rattle, so his kydex was always really well made, and that on both sides. Usually he molded them on both sides. That's another version that needs a bit attention. I need to grease it up and put it away. That is double side simply ground on that version here. Then this one is pretty interesting. I'm not sure if that was a leftover like the other two that we're gonna see. Sometimes as they quite likely laser cut the blades out, there were some leftovers in between the blades that he think he could grind up a bit to use as a knife. And this one is called a zipper. So it comes with a minimal sheet that looks really well into the place, and it's basically thin as a needle. It's about 3mm with the serrations here, serration there, no paracord of course, and we see on this side it's also stamped Livesay, so that makes a pretty steep strong tip on here, really like a needle, and you can put the thumb here, the finger here, and that gives you pretty good grip. So that's a minimal knife like a needle. For a while I did carry that quite a lot, especially back then in Switzerland again, as the knife laws about folding knives did get a bit crazy there. For a while they did ban one hand opening knives and all that, so I was pretty well off with the Wu and some other of the Livesay knives that I had. As we see, this one, an RG model, if I remember correct, that was one of the knives that I liked the most. It has a drop point knife. It was pretty good because it had double side grind, so you could use that in the kitchen on the workplace, as I did the steel work back then over there in Switzerland. And it's nice with the paracord handle. I can't remember if I wrapped that one in black or if it came like that. It's too long ago. With the matching kydex sheet in black, looks pretty well, is molded on both sides. And then the last ones, those are really special. I remember as he did email me and tell me that he had those items for sale. I can't remember the name. Maybe somebody that watches it can remember how they were called and post it on the description. I had 3 pieces. I think 1 I gave away, and those 2 I did keep. We see also the homemade camouflage pattern of the sheet, again double molded, and he put on a bit a smaller stamp there, and that was also, as best as I remember, kind of part that was in between the cutouts of other knife blades that he did think that he could grind to a shape for a knife, and it actually works pretty well. You have enough handle here and you can put in the thumb there, so the design is pretty well. You have a long blade, even he put a bit of serration on it. Serrations are not that common on his work at all, so that gives quite a good grip and handle for what it is. So that one is the one with the brown sheet, more desert camouflage. This one is more greenish pattern. The knives are pretty much the same. There is not much difference. We have a grind up here, then down here, the typical tanto style that he did, and again the stamp there. And typical, the steel was a bit rough. I think he not even did blast it much. He simply put it hot into the parkerizing. Of course, that did add to the low price that he charged for his work, and back then that was really well and really needed. He did sell a lot of knives to military people, law enforcement and private people as well, but then he somehow had a bit problem. He got not that many knives done in time as the people did want, and then some other competition came along, and that hype that it was back then did fade a bit away. So those are mainly older pieces, collectibles, and those are just basically smaller fixed blades like neck knives. He of course did do really big knives as well. As the last I saw from him, he also made some folding knives. Back then the Artac knife from the SC company, the prototypes and the first run, he did actually make the knives back then, and then that did go over to Ontario Knives, and now they make it themselves by SC Knife. So that is as best as I remember the story. So he was involved back then with a lot of different things, different designs. He also made some curved special purpose daggers, and yeah, some kydex sheet for the little 22 North American Arms revolvers. Back then, as I say, it's a long time ago, that was not that common for hideout or hideaway knives and guns. It was a complete different time as we have it now in 2014, where you can buy the tactical stuff by Walmart pretty much. So yeah, so that's a piece of the past. If you like his work, you can still check out his website, what is actually available for the price he has to charge nowadays. Also internet places that they sell used knives like eBay and all that. There is also a point to check for his knives. Be careful, there are knockoffs as well of his work around. Of course, that did sell pretty well back then, so other people did try to knock it off, but yeah, it is how it is. So that much about Newt Livesay. Hope he is well. hope he still make a bit of knife from time to time, and those knives did help me a lot back in the day, as I was stuck in Switzerland, not much money, so I could still have a bit a really good knife that has a bit a rough character outside, but is really well made with the heat treating and all that.